Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah,
And I'm Curtis.
and we're here today again with the wonderful Ian Chainey. Thanks again for coming on the podcast, Ian.
Friends, I love your NPR voice, Aaliyah. It's great.
Thanks. I'm just trying not to yell. Last time we were on the podcast with you, we were talking about conducting a compelling interview, but we were also going to talk about pitching ideas to journalists. And we didn't quite get to that topic because it's such a meaty topic before. So today we're going to delve into just that side of things. So can you kind of give me that summary that you gave before we started recording, like the three facets to this?
Yeah, definitely. As I said before the podcast, I throw a 3-pitch mix. I got a fastball. I got a slider that doesn't slide. I got a 12-6 curveball with it kind of looks like a duck dying of old age. Never really fell. I kind of stopped my baseball career dead there. But no, I think there's 3 different facets of pitching that we can talk about in our neck of the woods, like the more journalistic PR sense. I think the main focus of this conversation is going to be on either PR or bands pitching to writers and or publications to try and get their music out there. I think there's a good way to go about doing that that is more effective than just sending out email blasts and hoping that somebody will get back to you. Then on the other side, there's how journalists can pitch to publications. I think that one's pretty cut and dry and easy these days, but we can get into that one a little bit. And finally, I kind of want to talk to everyone about how journalists can reach out to bands with interview requests and how to make that more effective.
I like all 3.
Sounds great. Yeah, well, let's just dive right into that first one. And what situation, I guess, in what situation and how can you get started on this topic of pitching ideas to journalists as opposed to just sending out your music? We've talked before on the podcast about how doing an email blast is not PR. And this is one of the reasons why. Can you go into what it entails to kind of pitch to journalists an idea?
I think the most effective thing that you can do is to deliver an idea that is both different and creative, because when you are editor-in-chief of a website, the thing that you don't have time for is being creative anymore. I know from experience, at least when I was in Invisible Oranges, trying to find those 2 posts every day, that was a struggle. Just trying to rack your brain for anything because you are just in fight or flight editor mode at all times. So if a band can reach out to you and say like, hey, we got this great idea, we got this album coming out, and we want to play a board game with you. Boom, we're done.
I'm doing that as my next pitch.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm doing that as my next.
Yeah, anything that kind of displays the personality of the band in a great light and gives editorial a great idea to run with is going to be gold in that respect.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's an interesting idea, but I feel like a lot of bands might struggle with expressing their personality because their personality is so bound up in their music that they might not know how to express it outside of that in a journalistic sense. So do you have any tips on how to find that idea?
Definitely. I would look around the internet for ideas and videos that you like that aren't necessarily even related to music and try to figure out a way to kind of incorporate that into your own personality.
Any examples come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to name the band, but there's a band that I work with pretty often that always comes back with like the best ideas, and it's because those ideas are so far off the beaten path, yet they also just totally represent the band's own personality. And one of one of the ideas was they want to do a reaction video where they just reacted to all of the bad press that they got previously. I was like, cool, let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely, 100%. Let's fire that one off.
That's
for sure.
fun.
Yeah. So I love stuff like that. But what I think, like bands that are brand new, I think the struggle is just trying to even build up clips, right? Make sure that you have review clips, make sure that there's stuff out there that you can kind of build your media file with. And for those instances, I think it's best to just search online for bands that you know that you sound like, to try to find outlets that have given them positive reviews, and then reaching out to those outlets and saying, hey, can you review our music? You liked X. I think you also like us.
That's gold. I always say the same thing, like 100%. Off topic, but sort of
Go
on
for it.
topic. So, new band. I like what you're saying, Ian, but then new band is not going to get a feature at Louder Sound, Metal Injection, Metal Sucks, Stereogum, with any of those things, because they're just going to go, who fucking cares? So what do you suggest for a newer band on how to pitch something creative when nobody knows who you are? Because we all know, like it or lump it, he who can get more clicks is more likely to get written about. And it's hard for a new band.
He tried to make that a phrase that like flowed off the tongue, but
I did, and it didn't work. I know. I failed miserably.
But we know what you're saying.
I was out till like 2:00 in the morning at a show. I'm fucked up today. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, I wasn't drinking or anything like that. I want to make this clear, but I am tired. Quiet, Ian. Go ahead.
Sure. If we're rating Curtis's idea on the scale of pump it or dump it, where are we coming in on this one?
Yeah. Pump it or dump it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, I think that it really just comes down to like, how are you best going to display your personality in a kind of like a creative light? And like, I know that's kind of like a nebulous topic, but honestly, like if you just like act like yourself, because like you're doing the music entertainment stuff for a reason. Like obviously like you're an entertaining personality if you want to get your stuff out there. If you just kind of like act like yourself and just, build your brand. I hate to say that word, build your brand, and utilize the tools that are available to get the word out there via, social media and TikTok and so on and so forth. Like I think there's a way that you can get back up there in a positive light. But the key again is just to cut against the grain. Just don't do the stuff that everyone else is doing, Like you start to get fatigued when you see like the 800th lyric video that has like bad AI generated art in the background and so on and so forth.
And then we got to pretend like we're all enthused about it when we're writing the press release.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, anything that you can do to kind of not do those same tricks while still surfing in those general lanes with writers, I think is kind of the way that you got to do it. I mean, we talked about this a little bit previously, I think a few podcasts back, of just building relationships with writers and just getting to know them that way, either through, social media or so on and so forth. Yeah. So
let me, okay. So I'm just trying to think of like a band that isn't really too well known yet. So let's go with, we'll use Holly as an example. So our near and dear publicist, Holly, who's also in the band Disconnected Souls. So she has a band called Disconnected Souls. So they're a bit odd genre wise because they don't really fit into anything. They're all the stuff that you probably aren't really into, like new metal, goth metal kind of combo type thing. But they're all into D&D. So like if they wanted to pitch, do you think like if they pitch something like to a publication about them playing D&D or something like that, would that be effective, do you think? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, let's play the Disconnected Souls campaign.
I don't know anything about D&D. Is that a thing? It's a campaign.
Yeah, let's write the Disconnected Souls campaign and then release that as like a PDF that can go along with the article or something, Or like Holly's like talent is writing bios, right?
It is, yeah, 100%.
I mean, let's randomize 10 fake band names and then she goes off and just writes the bio for him.
I'm writing this down in case she doesn't listen to this podcast. Just so you know. Okay. Then let's go. Okay, so like Aaliyah's a big Lord of the Rings nerd, right? So how would she use something like that? Because it's a popular series, right? Like how would a band use something like Lord of the Rings?
Popular movie trilogy.
Yeah, just like Star Wars. So I mean, it's like, yeah. So like, let's say, how would they use something like that the members are big into in order to get a journalist's attention?
Yeah, I mean the memification of like Lord of the Rings is pretty rich right now, right? So I
True.
feel like there's like plenty of angles that you can go with that. I mean, maybe you do like a symphonic metal cover of like the hobbits are going to Isengard or something.
We might have a Lord of the Rings cover in our plan B plans of covers to do.
Yes. Love it.
But not a meme song. It's like a little more obscure, nerdy B-side.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Yep. Definitely. Definitely. But I mean, even just thinking of the internet loves it when you punish yourself with terrible tasks. So like Shield of Wings plays the new Gollum game until they finish it, whatever that is, like 20 hours straight or something. I'm sure that'd be
Sure,
like
like a live stream or something.
Yeah, that'd be a miserable experience. I'm sure would find covered somewhere. Yeah.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about, the Gollum game. I'm not even going to ask.
I don't know. Is there a new Gollum game?
Oh, it is horrible.
Oh boy. I'm not a gamer, so it's like
I mean, even better. Even better.
I didn't know. I was like, I mean, I didn't know if it was a referral thing or not, but now I know.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the crux of this conversation that we're having is that the easiest way to pitch a journalist is to find an original idea and then just go with that, because it is so hard for us to generate cool ideas that when the band has something cool for us, like most people are going to take that and run with it. And also, I think the other good piece of advice is figuring out how journalists want to be pitched. Either it's via email or if they want to get DM'd or so on and so forth. Like everyone's kind of like different in that respect, you know?
Yep.
Like I'm kind of the rare case where it's like I don't mind how you pitch to me, just because I realize that I'm very hard to get a hold of.
I wonder why, because he goes under a fake fucking name half the time. I wonder why.
Somebody started their pitch to me last month and it said, "You're the most mysterious person in metal." And I was like, come on. I'm not that bad.
You can't be found. Well, okay. Kevin Stewart Pankow is the worst. Kevin is the worst because he has no internet presence whatsoever. You're probably second. Second.
Yeah. I will make sure that the note that I strap to the like the dove that makes it out to Kevin later says something about that. So
But it sounds like a lot of this is like coming from this idea of tap into the things that you're interested in outside of your music. The shows that you like, the movies you like, the games you like. Tap into those interests and find a way to incorporate them into your music or use them to market your music.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, devil's advocate over here. So, I don't give a shit about their outside interests. I just don't care about the music. What do you got to say to that?
I mean, as like a reader or
the reader. Let's say the reader. Like, okay, because you're the journalist, you got to be interested in what you're writing about, obviously.
Yeah.
So from the reader's end, though, I mean, maybe I'm just saying, like, I actually
here's another thing. Doing something Lord of the Rings themed is kind of overdone at this point. So it's like,
yeah, but
are you interested in interesting things? That's another challenge you might encounter.
Definitely. Yeah, I still think that most things need an angle, especially if you're like a young band that's up and coming, because like at some point it just gets so tiring to write. Like, guys, you won't believe this, but this black metal band, they call themselves a horde. They wear corpse paint.
Imagine that.
They're super into the devil, and it's just like, you just you kind of see these you kind of see these like tropes, and then it's to the point where it's just like it just becomes part of like everyday metal vernacular, where you're just kind of like making fun of it, where it's just like, I'm working freshly in conspiracy with Brian because he needed me to take a shift, and I'm hoarding up with Daniel because we're also working 210s this weekend. So yeah. So I mean, you kind of want to get away from that, and especially these like shadowy anonymous like bands that want to like pretend like they don't have a presence. Like, it's cooler that we're this anonymous unknown horde, but please buy our CD that is coming out now for $15 via, whatever. And I think there still needs to be a way to get into that, and there just needs to be a fresh angle. I think that's the easiest way to do is to figure out whatever your angle is and then pitch to journalists that way.
Okay,
And
so
so,
go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, so one thing you should do is observe your surroundings and don't do what everyone else is doing. Like you said earlier, because I think what happens is sometimes bands will look around and see what someone else is doing. And then they'll be like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing as that band because I like that thing. But no, you need to find your own thing.
100%.
Well,
Yep.
yes and no, because you don't want to stray too far off the beaten path, because otherwise you're going to end up being too far out there for people. So you kind of got to find that mix, right, Ian?
Yeah. Also, like, I think the other handy thing that you can help journalists out with, or writers, I'd say, I'm not a journalist, I'm just a writer. You can help writers out by explaining both like everyone gets upset about the cliche of like, what are your influences during an interview? Because like, that's always the question that comes up and people get, I think people get tired of like both responding to it and reading about it.
Well, it's kind of annoying when you say your influences and then they're like, oh yeah, you sound just like them. And it's like, well, you're only saying that because I told you what the influence was. Otherwise you would never have thought of that.
Yeah. I love the ones where you get the recommended if you like, and it's like whatever bands are hot at that moment. Yeah, and so it's like 4 deathcore bands, and like the band in question just is like sounds like, I don't know, like Madball or something, just like a general like hardcore bands. Like
I've never done that with press releases ever. Never, not me.
Yeah, see what you're doing.
Never done it.
But like just telling people like what you sound like up front, like, we are a blank, we are a power metal band, we are a death metal band, we are a death grind band. Therefore, you just take the guesswork out of it from the writer's side, because at the end of the day, like everyone just like hears this stuff like differently. And I remember some band got upset because I described them as like a death grind band when they were just like, well, we're just a grindcore band. It's just like, okay.
Who cares? Yeah, who cares? Who cares?
Okay.
Who cares?
So so A, find an angle, B, try to like demystify yourself as much as possible to the writer. That makes it easier to write something, effusive and like positive about you.
So, okay, so just to not wrap up, but just to kind of summarize a few things here. So be original, but not too original. Make yourself interesting to the journalist. So now, let's say the band themselves cannot think of anything that is different about them other than the fact that they are a grindcore band that was influenced by Napalm Death. What then can you do to make yourself sound interesting to a journalist?
I mean, like where are they from?
So they're working class, from, I don't know, Idaho or something like that. They're from small town Idaho, working class. They all grew up working class. There's nothing special about them. Average.
I mean, yeah, but if you're like a Napalm Death-esque grindcore band from like Idaho, like tell me about that. In small town Idaho, like how did that happen?
We grew up. I guess you can talk about the potato farms. I guess okay. Okay. All right.
Okay. What is this hypothetical band called? Like the Eyes of Spud or something?
I don't know. I didn't even think about the name. I'm just trying to think of like what you would do in such a case. Like, because I mean, like Black Sabbath, they had no real interesting background, and then yet they managed to do like this horrific thing and made it interesting. So.
Yeah. I mean, like in the Black Sabbath sense, I think there was like enough going on there that kind of was so like far field of where blues rock was at the time anyway, that I think they were able to build off, the sense of the occult and stuff like that. Plus it was like interesting to have just a band of just like working class dudes just like out in the middle of nowhere, just like cranking out scary music. So I think that was also interesting. But I mean, it's just like where are you from? What is the scene like? What's going on there? Like,
where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Yeah, 100%. Like what jobs do you guys do? That kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think
work at McDonald's.
But at the same time, it's like you don't want to bore people with the mundane, right? You got to have you've got to put an interesting spin on everything. And you can't make your pitch very long. We've talked about this with many, many people. Your pitch can't be too long. So you don't want to bog it down with unnecessary details.
And I just realized something too. We're primarily talking about interview spin for the pitches right now. We're not talking about spin for the album reviews, really.
I wouldn't say that.
I would.
I
'Cause
think it's
most
pretty
you
much.
think it goes for both? Okay.
Yeah, I think it goes for both.
I think
Okay.
album reviews are kind of like a different thing.
I do too. Because like
I think the work that you have to put into getting an album review is kind of different than trying to bait somebody for an interview request.
yeah, because
Okay, okay.
if we said Shield of Wings was into Lord of the Rings and we want an album review, I'm kind of going like, how would that fit?
Sure. I thought that maybe having the interesting thing releasing with the song or whatever, that would be the twist for the pitch to get a news placement coverage.
Well, tell me how you're thinking. So, like Lord of the Rings, Shield of
Like
Wings.
if we were to do that cover,
yeah,
for something.
Oh, you're talking about the cover now. Okay, got it. Cool.
Like you're pitching this as like going along with an interview.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Just so we're clear. So Ian, let's talk about reviews then for a second here. So
Sure.
Because this is going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so what's a band we can think of here? So let's say we got
Lutharo?
Lutharo. Well, I can think of a zillion different things that are unique about them though. That one's easy. Okay, so we won't do.
Okay,
Lutharo.
what are you trying to find a band that doesn't have anything interesting
No,
about them?
no. I'm just thinking of something super. Like I could easily do Lutharo like in a heartbeat because I can think of like a dozen different things that can tie in with the album review for them. I'm not going to get into it right now because otherwise it's going to sound like a big sales pitch to Ian, which I'm not trying to do. So let's talk about we'll talk about Shield of Wings for a second because we're not saying you're not interesting. You're sitting here, so you get to be in the hot seat, dude.
Why can't we talk about Lutharo instead, man?
Because
We
you're
already
here.
talked about Shield of Wings.
You can defend yourself. They're not here to defend themselves. So Shield of Wings. So your album came out last year. So when it was hot and hadn't been released yet, so we're pitching it to, I don't know, Metal Sucks or something like that. So you guys are big Lord of the Rings nerds. You're into Nightwish. How would we frame this as a pitch for the album review, Ian? Metal Sucks, we're going to say it's for.
Interesting. When both you send out pitch emails, what does your subject line look like?
Oh, well, with Shield of Wings, it's pretty easy. I basically nowadays just say it's Aaliyah's band because everybody knows who Aaliyah is, and you can just be like.
Before that, it would be like
it's
symphonic
easy now.
Metal band.
But seriously.
Symphonic Metal Rising Stars, Symphonic Metal Vanguard. Somebody called us the Vanguard, so I thought that was pretty cool. Shield of Wings releases new album after 10 years of silence or whatever, after 7 years of silence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good. I think immediately stating like what you are and then something positive about you that somebody else said, I think is the way to go to get kind of like work that testimonial in there. When both of you like, I mean, I don't know how long you've had to do this, but like when you're making your resume or anything, do you get testimonials from other jobs to put in there?
I haven't done a resume in probably like 15 years, if not
yeah.
longer, maybe
So,
20 years.
Yeah, so at one of my other jobs, I got to like advise people on like how to build their resumes and stuff like that. And it's always one of the tips I always gave out was go to your jobs, get testimonials from like friends and family and so forth, and put that in your resume because that's the only thing that hiring people are going to see.
You're saying do that for bands, like get like fans and really? You'd be into that? Wow. Okay. That's a good tip for people listening.
Do you mean fans are like other journalists or either?
Yeah, just like whatever anyone else is like writing about the band and so on and so forth. Just so like there's something else there that you can look at beyond what the bio is going to be and like what else is happening with like the artist, right? So you can. That's why I think it's so important to like build up clips by if you're a band that has like no presence, just to reach out to maybe like whatever review sites of the bands that you sound like that have given out positive reviews of those bands, reach out to them, see if you can get a review and start building up your press that way. That way, when you're sending out stuff in the future, you can say like, hey, so-and-so said this about us, blah, 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 blah.
What about if you can't get that? What about those bands that get other band members to say good stuff about them? Like I saw someone last week quoting Chris Franzak. They were a metalcore band, and they quoted that Chris Franzak thought they were awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Yeah, and like anything that like demonstrates that A, people have heard your music outside of, who you're pitching to, that you're not just some like black hole entity. And then B, that, whatever names that you think you can get that would display well with your music and give the journalist some like interest in checking that stuff out,
Okay.
Like if our hypothetical Idaho napalm death band reached out to me and they said, "Hey, Shane Embry said this about us," I'd be like, "Okay, cool. I guess I'll look into this because it's got the Shane Embry cosign."
What if it was Chris Bronzak? Would you still look at it?
I mean, interesting. There's a lot of emails that Ian's got to look through, during the day.
Fair. Okay, so get some pull quotes from somewhere. It doesn't matter where if you don't have press. So if you get a big band, use that pull quote and use that as part of your pitch for the review. Then, perfect.
Yeah. Also, it's just like if you're gonna pitch to writers directly, it's just if you have some familiarity with the stuff that they like, you can also do that as well. Where it's like,
That's a good point.
hey, you, I saw that you like, Gore Guts. We also sound like Gore Guts. You reviewed all this stuff positively in the past. It was a really good write up. I think you would very much enjoy our music, so on and so forth.
So, okay, so Aaliyah, do you got anything more on this part of the topic you want to go over? Because I want to kind of shift gears a little bit.
I think we should shift gears, actually.
Cool. Okay, so with the pitching aspect of things, so one common reason that bands will seek out a PR is not just the fact that they have a bigger list than them or whatever, but most journalists already know who the PR company is, right? But if you're on a budget, you can't afford to do that. How would you suggest someone goes about trying to find a particular journalist? Because I got to be honest, Ian, finding you would probably not be that easy if I was in an underground band. It wouldn't. I mean, I'm pretty sure your Facebook profile is on private. Pretty sure. I could be wrong. You're under an assumed name on Twitter and Instagram. Your email address is not, Ian Chainey at stereogum.com. So I don't think there's a clear way of finding you. For example, just you for example. So how would a journalist go about, or not a journalist, a band go about finding someone like you?
I'm kind of a tough case. I mean, you can definitely get to me in this. I have contact info that's around. I think you just have to work for it a little bit harder than
I'm going to do a Google search while you're talking just to see if I can actually find you, but go ahead.
I mean, it's definitely out there. And like, that's like I think that's almost like part of the game as well, is this kind of like, you kind of got to do some legwork to get into my inbox at to some extent. So there's that. But usually, I mean, if somebody's writing online, they usually have some place that you can reach out to submit reviews and coverage of stuff into. I'd be very surprised if somebody did not have that in this day and age. But I mean,
there's a lot.
I guess that, I'm coming from a different era of metal writing, like back in the day when it was just like, you send us your promo, we're going to review it. And that really doesn't happen anymore. I'm just thinking about this stuff on the fly, just how much music criticism and coverage has changed.
Yep.
Where typically people are only writing about the stuff that they like, not the stuff that just comes in anymore, because there is just so much stuff to go through. So yeah, I mean, that's a little disheartening in that sense. But as far as like how to find, I mean, that's tough. I think.
So let's say band says they really want to get in well, obviously we probably shouldn't use you because I'm sure you don't want to get flooded.
I would say Ian's probably the exception rather than the rule, because most of the time you can find people on a lot of journalists, you can find them on Twitter. You can find them.
True.
Or there's a submission email on the magazine's website, which you're not writing directly to a journalist then, which is unfortunate, but
true.
There are ways to find contacts. So
true. Okay. Well, shifting gears just a little bit then, since we covered that. So next thing with pitching. So we've talked about reviews, we've talked about interviews. So let's talk about for a second here features. So you want to talk about how to best pitch a feature? I mean, we kind of went over a little bit with the D&D type thing, but if you a couple other ideas maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same general ideas, just finding something interesting and pitching journalists with that, or just an interesting angle, just an interesting inroads that they can get in and write about something. Because like nothing's worse than just, you have no idea what you want to write about, and then like the band's not giving you much either.
So
It really takes.
what would be an example of a bad pitch that you've received, like you personally, without naming names? Bad pitch.
Like, hey, here's our band camp. See you later.
I love how that comes out to be the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely I definitely run into like the bands that kind of like have zero understanding of like who I am and like what I do, and they pitch me weird stuff based off of that, and it's like we're a tribal folk band. It was like, okay, like even if I like you, like where am I gonna put that? So I think having some familiarity with like the site that you're gonna be pitching out to is gonna be helpful in that regard, or the writer or what they're into. But honestly, like the worst is just like, here's our band camp. All right, see you later. Have a good one. Did my due diligence. I'm gonna check that box. Go back to band practice and said I did all the PR.
I just had one of those yesterday, and I was just like, anyways. Ali, what else?
The why is just what Ian said, just so they can check it off their list and say they did their PR, and then they can blame the journalists for not checking out new bands anymore.
They all suck. So, okay.
But let's move on into the other facets.
What are the other facets we want to talk about here?
Yeah, we wanted to talk, you mentioned talking about journalists pitching to publications as the second facet.
Yep. Ooh. So most of the bigger publications now are going to have a set of pitch guidelines. So the easiest thing to do is just reach out to whatever site you want to pitch to, find out what their pitch guidelines are, and just conform your pitch to whatever the pitch guidelines are. It makes it so much easier when everything's uniform, when it's coming in, to kind of like sort through and be like, okay, like this person knows what's going on. And it just demonstrates that you can jump through hoops and, you're able to do the things that they need you to do, which reflects well upon yourself when they want you to like meet deadlines and so on and so forth, and make sure that you're adhering to the style guide. So I think that's a lot easier than like back in the day when I first got into writing, and you had to buy this like huge ass book that had like everyone's addresses under the sun, and then you like send out like proposals and stuff like that, and be like, well, here's what the first graph is going to sound like, I guess. All right, I'm going to send this one off into the ether. Please send me mail back. Ha ha. Thank you, nice person. But if you're dealing with like
for the stamps too.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're dealing with a site that like does not have pitch guidelines yet, then that's like also the easiest thing in the world, because you just build relationships with like either the people that are writing there or the editor, and be like, hey, you can either reach out and say like, hey, how do you want me to pitch this idea to you? So, you can understand exactly like where I'm coming from with this stuff. Like, I'm a new writer. I would love to write for your site, so on and so forth. How can I do this for you? Or you just, have a very good understanding of the site and just be like, hey, I saw that you were writing stories about this, this, and this. I have fluency in this, this, and this. Here's a sample of my work. Here's some of my clips. And you kind of go about it that way. But yeah, for like the heavier hitters, I guarantee you they're going to have pitch guidelines. So just reach out for the pitch guidelines and then conform your pitches to that.
One question just on that though is, so like, let's say that the person doesn't have any clips yet. They haven't written anything yet. Would you say give a sample review, or is that a dumb idea?
It really depends on the site, and I think in those cases, I would reach out to other writers and be like, hey, like I don't have any clips. I want to pitch to this site. Do you have any experience with them? Like, what are they looking for? What do they want? And then you can kind of go through like the community aspect that way to figure out the best way that you can pitch to a site in that regard. I think the unfortunate thing about the internet these days is that so many young writers get caught writing for free.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, and it's really tough that you kind of got to get your foot in the door that way, especially because we're working in such a different media environment. Where I was talking with a pretty well-known editor the other day, and we were saying that because there's no alt weekly pipeline anymore, where you get hooked on with like an alt weekly and you write for them, and then some old editor who hates your guts pounds your copy into dust whenever you give it to them. You're like, hey, I gave you this 5,000 words about the Japanese psych rock in the 70s, and then you see it in print and it's like 40 words, like so on and so forth. Like, because you don't have that experience anymore of just like these people that have been in the game just molding you as a writer. And you get into these blogs, and the blogs obviously are kind of like loath to do line edits on your stuff. Like, you're not going to experience a death by line edit via a blog. Like, it just kind of, it's kind of why music writing is in the place that it is right now, I feel, is because it's hard to kind of learn how to be a writer as like an autodidact, You don't really get the reps in from like editors that's like chewing you out and really messing up with your work. So like, it's kind of like hard to build a portfolio and clips that way as well, especially because you have so many other options to work outside of like the editorial structure, either with like a Substack or your own blog or so on and so forth. And just kind of is how it is.
I wanted to actually touch on that briefly, even though I know, again, this isn't really part of the topic. Writing for free, you sound like you discourage this. Can you just kind of go over that really quick?
You should try to establish your worth wherever possible. Because the trap is that if you write for free, you're always going to be writing for free, because people are like, oh, that's the dude that's going to write for free all the time. Yeah. And so you should try to establish your worth wherever and whenever possible. And sometimes, that's hard because you want to get your work out there. You want to do stuff. You don't want to just be grist to the content mill like so many of us are now, and you want to do good work that just stands out there. But it's tough stuff out there for writers right now. I mean, as we found out today, it's stuff out there for podcasters. Spotify just laid off like 200 people. So
I didn't even hear that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, that sucks.
Indeed. Yeah,
that totally sucks. Okay, so try to establish your worth if you can. What other facets do we want to cover, Althea?
Well, we're sorry we got to cut that one short, but we have to move on to the third one because we're running short on time already.
Yeah.
The third topic being pitching to artists that you want to interview.
Ooh, I could talk about this for hours, but let's hear Ian's take on this.
Let's hear what Ian has to say.
Yeah, I know.
This.
Yep, I'm a huge stickler for this. So first thing that you have to do when you're reaching out to an artist is you have to tell them who you are. I am Ian. I am a freelance writer. I am the idiot who writes the intro to The Black Market on Stereogum. Boom. Everything's out of the way, right? Then you want to tell them exactly why you're reaching out to them. And you got to be quick about this stuff. You can't spend like paragraph upon paragraph because people are not going to read it. And so say like, I'm reaching out to Shield of Wings because I know that y'all are into Lord of the Rings, and I got an intro coming up that is Lord of the Rings based, and I would love to have some of your insight because you're one of the premier Vanguard metal bands that does Lord of the Rings stuff, right?
I like this.
Next thing you want to do, and this is where some people get tripped up, you want to say what the tone of the piece is that you're writing. You're going to say, hey, the tone of this piece is going to be somewhat jokey, but I think your section is going to be very serious because I need to play off of this and have a contrast of this and so on and so forth. So people know what they're getting into, right? Because the worst thing is you sign up for an interview and then you go in there and like people are just like dumping on you like 24/7, just like making fun of your stuff. And it's like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be like a serious adventure, or like you do like a heartfelt interview and then like you read it in print and it's just like they're just like making fun of you the entire time. It's just like there's no honesty there whatsoever. Yeah,
that's what I'm afraid is going to happen to me with this one I just did.
Yeah. That's always the worst. Yeah, I can't stand that stuff. Then if you want to put like representative samples of your work after the tone, where you say like, hey, the piece is going to be like this, which I've written this before, like this, or this. So people can check out your work and be like, okay, this person's serious. They know what they're doing. It's going to be in this vein. I understand what this is. okay, I'll give them a green light. That's usually how I go about doing my pitches.
One thing I want to bring up for anybody who's listening, if a journalist pitches you to do an interview or they want to do something with you, for the love of God, show up. Just fucking show up. I don't know how many fucking times I've had a journalist reach out to us. It'll be like a big site, big magazine, and the band just either forgets or something came up and they couldn't be bothered to even message the fucking journalist to let them know that something came up. And it's one of the most infuriating things in the world because I have had big publications do this and the band just shits the bed. We look like assholes. The band looks like assholes. Nobody wants to deal with you anymore. I'm sorry I had to rant about this, but it's happened too many fucking times.
Has it happened to you, Ian?
So yeah, definitely. I've also had the reverse happen where I got a call from somebody and the PR person was like, "Hey, hold on, I got Mike on the line," and then like they would come on and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning or something. I was like, "Hello."
Oh, no.
I was like, "Hey man, it's Mike. I'm here from," I won't say the band.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "We're here to do the interview, right?" And it's like, "Who is this for?" And it was for like a totally different publication. It wasn't me. I was like,
Oh no.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
yeah, I was like, "Sorry, like, I guess we can talk if you want." He's like, "Nah, it's cool, man. I'll get you later." I was like, "All right, gonna go back to bed. Have a good night."
I just read an interview with Andrew Eldritch that was in this Chicago music publication. And the journalists, I guess Andrew Eldritch has zero online presence, which I don't blame him. He only calls people he doesn't have an email address. He doesn't have a cell phone. He only calls people via landline. He called this journalist at like 5 PM, and the journalist was like very rude, like immediately, because he never gets phone calls. And Andrew was like, "Hi, it's Andrew from Sisters of Mercy. I thought you wanted to interview me," or something like that. And then proceeded to give the interview, and it was fine. But I just thought that was a funny anecdote. Good interview, though.
That's another thing too that's worth adding to your pitch is just like how you're available through what means. Zoom, you want to do an emailer, you want to do a phoner, and like what times you're available as well.
Hopefully don't.
Also, what your deadline is. When your deadline is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. That's another thing that's the worst too. Like fucking you get a deadline from the journalist, but it's print. And the band doesn't get it to you, doesn't respond, and then they send it to you 2 weeks later, and then they're fucking mad that the thing didn't end up in print.
Yeah.
You guys can tell this is all happening.
I can tell that the journalists are very like used to that happening because I just got one for a print magazine and he sent me the interview questions and he needed a picture of X, specs. And then the next day he's like, "Can you confirm that you're going to get this to me by the time that I stated?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally. We got it. It'll be there in like before that date." I didn't realize that he's just like probably so used to people not getting back to him.
Yep. And half the time they're surprised when you get it to them on the right date too. But it's still, I would imagine,
try to be on top of things, musicians.
I would imagine this is now like a running gag with most print places. Like is like you give them the wrong date just to make sure that you get it by the right date. I know I'll do that to some bands. Like if I'm worried at all that they're going to be late on the interview, I'll tell them that they got like maybe 4 days when I know that they actually got 14, and just see what happens.
Yeah, no comment on that one. Definitely never done that in my life.
Yeah, I've never done that before in my life either. Never. But I mean,
a lot of nevers happening this episode. Yeah. Well, everyone listening, thank you for listening. And until next time, make like a bull and throw those hordes up.